But I am going to go ahead and pull up. Let's see, we've got, that is not it. Okay, here we go. So we have, as we introduced them earlier today, John and Steve from the YMCA of Greater Houston. And if you've been with us this morning, you heard them in our keynote panel. Steve is the CEO and John is the VP of Executive VP of brand experience, or Senior VP of brand experience. I don't have my notes pulled up, so excuse that. But we are so excited. They are going to dive in and really show us more about the impact membership. They spoke to that earlier in the panel, and the things that they're doing to change Houston. And Daxco has been so blessed to be a partner with them in this, and just see the amazing things that they've created, and really how they're charging towards their future. So as Steve mentioned, have your questions in mind. We will have a lot of time for questions here. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to them to get started.
Thank you, Allison. And thanks everybody for joining us today. This is, we're going to share a little bit. I'm going to start out just sharing a little bit about where this all came from, a little bit about the first 3 months after we did our shutdown and how that's evolving into this theme that you see up on our marketing slide, which it is really time to change how we change Houston. So I'm going to go all the way back to Steve Ives as a program director. And early in my career, I had a chance to write in some of you who've been around longer remember AYP magazine or APD magazine. And I got to write an article, and I won a scholarship to go to a national conference. I was like 25, 26 years old. This was an amazing experience for me. But the article or the paper that I wrote was on where will the why be in the youth of tomorrow. Already early in my career, I was beginning to wonder about this. We have this fitness, this wellness, this membership model, and how's that going to turn out for kids and for youth? And my primary job at that time was as a social worker doing youth work inside the Y. And, I would say that as I've had my career and been now in 4 different YMCAs of different varying sizes as a CEO, it's always been a lingering thought in the back of my mind. How do we got to stay true to our core reason that we became an institution and organization? For those of you who were in England just last year, for that gathering and just saw and heard the youth voice. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, it's worth doing some research. Just a really powerful message about George Williams, our history, and really the power of young people in our organization. Well, one of the things that I know, being more of a veteran in this institution and in this work, is that I have 2 daughters who are both millennials, that the way they think and the way they see the world is very different than the way I have thought and seen the world. And so all of that kind of came together for me about 3 years ago. At that point, I was the CEO of the YMCA of Central Ohio in Columbus, Ohio. And I began working directly with our marketing team and with our staff around this idea of a different kind of membership that wasn't anchored to, wasn't tied to use of the gym or use of the fitness facility. What was concerning me was that I didn't think that 2 things were happening. One, we're not engaging enough people to really move the needle on the big social issues that we all care about and want to move the needle on. And we also have such a small segment of the population. Did my research, it's about 20 to 25% of the population will use a gym. And we've thought about, I've spent most of my career thinking about, we'll just get more people to use the gym. We'll just get more people to be fit, and that'll solve the problems we're trying to solve in community and build a stronger business model for us. I like to say we've been throwing treadmills at this problem for quite some time, yet youth obesity, chronic disease, the things that we care deeply about, social inequities, those things continue to be a significant problem. At some point, we have to ask the question, are we going to keep doing the same thing harder? That's, as many have said, is the definition of insanity. And so I don't choose to spend the rest of my career in an insane place, and began at that time with building out a model. I engaged a millennial coach, happened to be my daughter, who became a thought partner with me on this and helped me kind of think through what would resonate, what kind of messages. And that was bubbling up. We hadn't got to the point where we were able to experiment with anything yet, when I had the opportunity and ended up finding myself in Houston, Texas, with this massive platform, with this desire for innovation, with this, incredible opportunity in the most diverse city in the US, depending on who you ask. Those in Houston say it is the most diverse. So I'll agree with them while I'm here. It's a safer thing to do. But if it's not the most, it's one of the most diverse cities in the US. Our Y is doing refugee resettlement. We have a whole program around human trafficking, helping victims escape from human trafficking. There's amazing work happening here in many of these spaces, yet still, as I got here, incredibly married to, connected to this membership model. For perspective, we had to sell 7,500 memberships every January just to maintain our membership base and have a little bit of growth. We were on this treadmill, if you will, this wheel, this mouse wheel of selling memberships in that model. And then COVID hit. And we, as I shared earlier, immediately let go of the past and said, and a big part of me was saying, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I have to admit, don't blame this on me, but I have to admit that I have often, over beers with some of my colleagues, contemplated how cool it would be if we could just shut this damn thing down for 6 months to a year and restart it. So it's not my fault, but I have to admit that those things crossed my mind and have crossed my mind as I thought about what it would take to really reposition our Ys for the future. Faced with this opportunity and this horrific experience, because it wasn't fun and it was awful to watch so many of my colleagues leave. We have lost a bunch of talent in our YMCA system, and really good people have gotten hurt through all of this, both with the physical ailments as well as the economic impact and the emotional challenge that comes with seeing your job and your life disrupted and watching people around you have their jobs and their lives disrupted. And in the midst of that, saw this incredible opportunity for us, and a sense of responsibility and accountability to make sure that we come out of this, or came out of this, in a way that was poised for the future, that was different, that honored the pain and suffering that we've had to take as individuals, as teams, as organizations, and as a movement through all of this. So born out of that was our virtual assets. We thought that was going to be something we'd get to in the next couple of years. Within a month, we had a virtual platform stood up. We had to. It was by necessity. It was a requirement. We also chose that we were going to not charge our members for membership while we were closed. We stopped all drafts on April 1. And we invited at that point, it was 60,000 or so membership units, 65,000 membership units. We invited all of them, if they could, to consider continuing their draft of their membership and making it a contribution. To our surprise and delight, we had 15 or 16,000 of our members do that. So it was a contribution. It turned out to be about $2.5 to $3 million of charitable support, philanthropic support from a very large number of our members. Psychologically, we began to shift for them what it meant to be a member. And we sent lots of messaging about how they were making the food distribution happen, how they were making the child care initiatives happen, and how they were helping women escaping and people escaping human trafficking and refugees resettle, all of that. And so during those 3 months, we also began to build out the future of the Y. I shared earlier the taking away or canceling of the third party. That was about us being able to relaunch with our own model of a senior programming. We call it Forever Well. We're doing it with some other Ys around the country. And so there will no longer be an other party branded program inside our Ys when we launch. That's the larger vision. We also were very clear about pricing. We adjusted our pricing some down when in preparation for reopening, which happened in July, mostly honoring the fact that it's a different model, it's a different facility to come into. And we worked really, really hard through that period to begin developing this concept that I shared about, that I had begun to build out with my daughter, which is another kind of membership. Chose to call it our impact membership. There was some wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth around what you call it, because can you even call it a membership? I remember those conversations. Call it a membership is going to confuse people. I just was really committed to transforming how people think about membership, and not calling it contribution, not calling it a subscription, not calling it something else. It was about this huge leap forward in repositioning. I call it resetting the relationship that we have with our members. our members, you heard all this language around transactional versus transformational. Come transform with us. Help us change the way in which we're changing Houston, is the whole call to action for people in that impact membership model. And so we began, working hard at piloting, experimenting, sharing with others. And lo and behold, what we discovered pretty quickly was, as John alluded to earlier, really easy to tell our board members, hey, why aren't you a member of the Y? Some of you may not experience this, but we had a number of about 120 of our board, center boards and association board members that weren't members of the Y. To a T, 100% of the time, when we asked them why they weren't a member, I'm making donations, I contribute to the Y, I'd rather give you my money as a contribution, and I will never use the Y. For them, it made no sense to be a member unless you were going to use the facility. We trained them very well around that, folks. We trained our communities very well around what it means to be a member is to use our facilities or to use our programs. And so that just branded or embedded in me a stronger desire to take advantage of this disruption and to work very hard and be committed to transforming the way in which our people in the community saw membership. And so that evolved into us reaching out to our board members, reaching out to some of our donors who weren't members, and in particular, talking to people who were canceling. This now became a place for people to quit too. So when folks were canceling their membership, they got a call from our brand experience team. They got a call from our staff members, inviting them, if they really love the Y and just aren't feeling safe coming in, aren't comfortable using the facilities, to continue as a member, especially if membership meant something. What we found is that there's a fair number of people that just being a member of the Y, being a card holding member of the Y, actually means something beyond just what they get out of it. They have an affinity to it, an allegiance to it, a historical connection to it. And so we've been successful in transitioning some of the folks that are calling or beginning to cancel their membership from $0 to $25, which is the price we've put at the moment for our impact membership. And so they've stayed connected, they stayed engaged, and then we began building out a program. Today we have about 800, so we fluctuated from 800 to 1,000 impact members. We think that that's a decent base to start from. And we've not even begun to reach out to the real market. The real market, in my mind, is that 75 or 80% of the citizens of the Greater Houston area who will never join the Y as long as it's tied to being part of a gym, as it's tied to a facility or facility use or programs. Changing the way in which people think about being a member of the YMCA, for me, is a path towards changing the future of our YMCA in our community. For some perspective, so big city, very different than other places, but a big community. So John alluded earlier, it's about 8 million people in our metropolitan service area. You take that 80%, and you take a very small percentage of that, 50 or 100,000, impact members someday, done right, is not out of the question as a number that is believable and achievable. Even if it's 20,000, that many more people caring about our cause, engaging in our work, participating, and paying us $25 a month has multiple impacts. It has a greater chance to move the needle on the social issues because we've got more people having those conversations and participating in them, contributing to them, engaging with them. And secondly, recurring revenue at $25 a month. So if we were to get to the 100,000 for members at this level in our market, that translates into $20 to $30 million of revenue that will cost us a couple million to 5 million at the most to serve. Now, this doesn't make as much sense in smaller markets. I get that. I understand that. There may be elements of it though. And so we're going to try this. We're going to try to pilot this with some partners in smaller markets to determine, what it's all a matter of percentages, right? So if you've got 15,000 people in your 30,000 people in your community and you can engage another 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 and they're more deeply engaged with you, then you have this path to help them move from being an impact member to being a full facility user. You have this whole up and down ramp up. we've got a lot of work to do to build out our infrastructure. As John alluded to, we're working closely with Daxco. We hope to launch our first version of an a la carte membership. That means you pick your pieces of the why that you're engaging with as a membership. But at the core of every membership will be this idea, this notion that membership is about impact. Now, we've got all sorts of variations of that will evolve from it. I learned once from an innovator that, how sometimes you hear these speeches and someone will say that one thing that you just don't forget. This particular speaker was talking about he had 7, I can't even tell you what the other 6 are, but the number one, step or important aspect of innovation is to put your crap out first. Thought it was cute the way he said it, but the idea is that sometimes we take all our time to get it to perfection before we try it in the market. So this is a good product. I'm not suggesting that it isn't, but compared to what it will become, I hope in a couple of years, we'll be like, what were we thinking? Because if we do this right, or as we do this right and are patient and engage with others, we'll have a new model of membership that really does allow us to engage tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million or more people across the country in a very different way. And the next time we have to close our facilities, we'll still have a good base of people who they don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change a thing for them around that. So I'm really excited and proud of John and our marketing team and our overall team and our board, quite frankly, who had the courage to support this and actually encourage this with our why. We're ready to go with our next experiment, if you will, which is that digital marketing interface with just hopefully we'll reach up to 3.5 million people, and we'll find out how they respond. How they respond will inform the next thing we do. It's not a right or wrong, good or bad experiment. It's what do we learn to help make this even more impactful. And we may right out of the blocks have a whole lot of engagement. It may feel like a dud. It really doesn't matter to us because we are committed for the long run in helping to evolve something that will be the future of membership that will allow us to have people be part of our YMCA's in a way that isn't anchored to facility usage and facility program. So with that as sort of the overview, John, was there anything else you wanted me to cover? And if not, jump on the slides and just kind of give them an overview of the mechanics around this, like the messaging and positioning that we're doing.
Yeah, you can do that, Lisa. If you don't mind, I'll let you drive in lieu of me making any mistakes here. But I think the couple things just to add to what Steve articulated really well is, I don't want people to think that we're not still focused on our traditional membership strategy, although we'll be doing it in a very different and a very unique way, as I alluded to earlier, but it is still our primary focus. And we'll still have those 500,000 or so people that still continue to engage with us. The idea is that we want to get them to engage with us in a very different way. And so we'll be introducing some of the messaging around the impact membership and some of the messaging related to our cause as we go through this journey. It's also important to reiterate, and I think I put this in the chat, we have only tested what we call our internal audience, not our external audience. So again, anytime you launch a new product, let's test it, let's pilot it. Also, we talked about this in our last session, is that we've got an entire staff, right, that we've got to, work this through. So avoiding the confusion between traditional membership versus, is this a donation? How's it can impact my revenue? What am I accountable for? All the things that, we ask the right questions. It's a big lift. So over this 3 to 4 month process, it's been a lot of internal negotiation as well, but it's also building the infrastructure, as we said, to support this. So this is going to be a 5-year journey for us. So what I thought I would do for those that are creative, right? Steve's the vision and our team is we execute on that vision and we learn as we go. But what I thought I might do is just share a little bit some of our creative, how we're positioning ourselves in the market, a little bit around what our business strategy. And remember, this changes every single day. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the mechanics. So Lisa, if you want to go to slide 2, you'll see on my screensaver, that one of the things that we're trying to communicate to our audience is that, you know, we are not a place, we are a purpose, right? And we've been very, very intentional about that. So as we talked about in our marketing and communication, you won't see things like joiner's fee and all of that. It's always going to be about our cause, and we want you to be part of our cause. So in here's the positioning, and I'll be more than happy to send any assets that we have. We're also creating our first commercial. So as we go public with this, you'll start to see some of the external assets that we're creating. So again, I won't read this, but this really talks about our positioning and our methodology. Lisa, if you want to go to the next one. Steve alluded a lot to this, right? So this is about building an inclusive and sustainable organization, right? We always talk about the churn and the churn that we face, right? Those 500,000 members that join and cancel and join and cancel, and then it's rinse and repeat trying to engage them back. What we are starting to find through some of our conversations, particularly at our member experience center, is that people love the why, but they're not ready to come back. And we talked a little bit about our brand lift earlier. And as people love the work that we're doing, they're like, wow, I didn't know the why did refugee resettlement. I didn't know the why was focused on human and sex trafficking. I didn't know why took a stance around racial inequality. I want to support that. Not ready to come back, but happy to support that. And then behind all of that, this is where the infrastructure comes in. We've created and designed a member journey. And so every one of our members that join the Y, whether it's the traditional member or an impact member, we engage them through a welcome video. We engage them in terms of inviting them to be part of activities, movie premieres, online lecture series. So, and I'll share a little bit about what our messaging is, but there's an infrastructure and we have a team dedicated just to making sure that those impact members remain engaged with us. So you'll see a little bit about inclusive and sustainability, provides a membership for all. I think it's the first time, at least in my 19 year Y career, I can absolutely say that a membership does good. We've always tried to figure that out. But I think for the first time, we're positioned really, really well. As Steve talked about, right, this, how we embed this into our existing traditional membership as COVID either goes up and down, hurricanes hit, depending on what the day is, we will make sure that we're building into our existing members through a communication towards a loyalty plan. I can talk more about that later, about how you will always be an impact member. And this way, if we ever have to shut down, they will be able to stay with us as an impact member in perpetuity, right? And then when we reopen, then they'll go either back up to their traditional or they'll go into that a la carte pricing model that Steve talked about. So again, the idea that we've learned is people want to stay with us, but if we can connect them to our cause, the likelihood of them canceling or putting their membership on hold is we have a higher chance of doing that. And then again, we just talked about the cultural side of it. So next slide talks, that's good. You're good. You can drive for me. This is really about joining the solution. So again, when we talk about membership, it's not about joining a facility. Again, this is about what we've talked about being part of something bigger than they are and the opportunity for them to then take action and to help change our community. We can go to the next slide. So this is our messaging, and this is what we've learned is really a priority. And I think, you know, I've got some good thought partners. One of them happens to be on the call, and he really challenged us to say, hey, what are the problems that you're trying to solve in the community? What are the things that are personal for each individual that they may want to be part of this journey? So as I talked a little bit earlier, it's not necessarily about getting people to join the Y, about, you know, basketball, swim lessons, group exercise, all those things. I talked about our engagement with our seniors, right? 20,000 of them engaging with them on our virtual platform. Well, doesn't that address isolation? So I think isolation is a bigger issue for us to attack versus an online fitness class, right? There are more people lonely than there are more people working out. And so how do we address isolation? Basketball, swim lessons, they engage kids in activities. That also addresses isolation. So these are what we refer to as our 5 buckets: end isolation, fight inequality. We just launched our Equity and Innovation Center. So we've taken a real stance and put a flag that we will end systemic racism. We will address health disparities across all communities. And then we talk about inspiring youth. We talk about removing limits and reimagining opportunity. We have a big Miracle League program. We also do a lot around special needs and special needs populations in a lot of our communities. And then again, this idea that Steve talked to about restoring hope and well-being. So this is our external messaging as we go out to the community when we start to really promote this. You can go to the next slide. So this is where the fun part gets, right? This is some of our creative. And so as we go out there and we talk about, you know, whether it's online or whether it's traditional, as we begin to position this membership in the marketplace, you're not going to see anything transactional. We are trying to invoke people's emotion to have them be part of something better than themselves. So again, this is an example of whether this is a digital play or this is a billboard. You can go to the next one. Not a place, not a purpose. So this is what we would refer to as our Nike statement, right? We at the Y know this, and we've been trying to solve for this. We do 1,000 things and we mean 1,000 things to 1,000 different people. But we've never been able to put our flag in the pole and say we do one thing and we do one thing really well. So our engagement strategy is not a place, a purpose, is going to be our Nike statement moving forward. And then all these other things are going to fall into place. This way, we're engaging people in a very, very different and in a very, non-traditional way. You can go to the next piece. Again, for those creative assets, again, this is how this is some creative, again, as members have either canceled, or they've put in their membership on hold. This is a demonstration of some creative that we've done. And there's a lot, I'm not doing justice to all the creative that's been behind there. This also will be on our website. This will also be on our mobile app. So you'll see this new brand. But again, remember, this is an external market. This is not an internal market that we're currently addressing. So this is, again, an opportunity for us to engage people that may have canceled, may have left, may have put on hold. You can go to the next slide. Again, same demonstration here about getting people connected back to the Y, and it's really about advocating for those in need. It's all about the call to action on how we collectively change Houston. You got the next piece. Again, just another demonstration of some creative to support it. You can go to the next piece. And then behind it, as part of the assets that we have created for all of our impact members, you'll see that they all receive digital assets, screensavers like this, as well as we have creative and design for all of them to share. We're working on key influencers in our community to help push this content out there. So again, as part of their toolkit to engage folks, there's an opportunity for them to share this, refer a friend, and get people engaged into this overall strategy. 2 quick things I'll leave you with just on the mechanical side of it. We also feel that this is a really strong approach for our corporate market. We've had traditional corporate memberships with different corporations, right? And so it's been, how much of a discount do you get? And again, what is it typically? That 1% of the employee base actually takes advantage of it. But what about the other 99%? I shared about our Equity Innovation Center. I shared about some of the other assets that we're creating. We think this is a great opportunity for an employer to subsidize an impact membership for their employees to be part of something bigger. They don't necessarily have the infrastructure to run an Equity and Innovation Center. We do. So again, opportunity to engage them. And then the second side is, as we roll this out to our existing membership base, right? So if we've got 40,000 drafting memberships right now. The idea is, how do we convert them over to becoming an impact member? Our strategy is that we're going to educate them throughout the next 3 months of all the continued great work that we're doing. And then the idea is, effective February 1, we want them to somewhat take the pledge to become an impact member. And then as an idea behind that is, if they become a loyal impact member and help us advocate for good, we will hold their existing pricing as long as they remain an impact member. So they can upgrade their membership, they can downgrade it. But it's a good strategy for us to get the message out to our existing members, to let them know all the great work they're doing and what they're supporting, as well as they'll, again, too, we've never been able to do this, reward them for the work that they've done. So lots and lots of mechanics behind this. Again, Steve and I will be the first to say, we have not figured this out. We're excited. We do feel that this is going to be our future. We do not feel competing in the fitness space is something that's going to be a long-term strategy. We think that this is a bigger, broader opportunity to engage people. So I know I dumped a lot of information out there, so I'll kind of pause and let Steve fill in any blanks or mistakes that I may have made.
No mistakes, John, as usual.
Good. I can come back tomorrow.
But we really wrestled with what to do with our existing members. We're going to try something. We'll see. We'll let you all know how it works. But the idea, as John alluded to, is that for people who are currently members, we want to reward them and say no extra cost, and we'll lock in your rates to be impact member. And in the future, we're thinking, we got like 3 different scenarios. One is that we embed it into the membership, and other is that it's an add-on that people can do. And we're going to use these times of experimentation to get really clearer on all of that. We also, programs. What do you do about programs? And so, my North Star on this, I've asked the team to solve for, is there's never, ever going to be a non-member fee ever again. When it's just like pick the time next year or whenever that we get there, that whenever someone signs up and starts paying a monthly subscription for school-age childcare, that they know that they're a member. Their family is a household impact member. It's embedded into the pricing. It isn't a decision they make. It's just part of the deal. And then when people sign up in the future to sign up for swim lessons, the base rate's going to include an impact membership as a monthly rate. And then they'll have the opportunity to upgrade that. Now, that's an interesting concept. How you actually solve for it, we got to practice. We got to stumble a bit. And we're going to continue to do that. The thing that I can also share with you is that we have, as I shared earlier, we've been very, very fortunate on the philanthropic front. And we do have some resources going into next year that we'll be able to partner with some other Ys and experiment with delivering this kind of messaging in other markets, and just to determine, do we get similar results, better results, different analytics that we can learn about how people respond to all of this, and also solve for how might this be available to a whole bunch of Ys without every Y having to make the kind of investment that we're making. And so those are things we hope to solve for, and we got some funders behind us that are really excited about what we're doing and are going to help us to do that with some partners in other markets. And I think in the meantime, Ys will experiment on their own with this. What we know is the vision we have for this requires a very, very substantial investment into the infrastructure of our CRM and the integration of our website. And my sense is, why would everybody have to duplicate that? Can we solve for making that, as Jorge alluded to, making that available for anybody and everyone in some format, so that you can start building in your community something similar? Again, we've still got a road ahead of us to answer a lot of questions and to solve for some of the complexities, and as I said, stumble a bit along the way, and to make this an even more elegant product over the course of the 3 to 6 months ahead of us, and ultimately the years ahead of us. So with that, I think there are a couple of questions. Allison, I don't know how you want to handle the rest of this time together and Q&A. Maybe you can curate that for us. And we're happy to go deeper on anything people like to hear us go deeper on, or just respond to some of the mechanics? Or maybe
Yeah.
Lisa's going to do that. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm happy to kind of get the questions queued up for you both. First of all, thank you so much for going deeper into what is a pretty big transformation in terms of how you're serving the Houston community. I know that it's been a huge experiment of sorts that you're undertaking in a time that's very uncertain. I have a question first off. John, maybe this one is for you, but I know as you're rolling this out, there are so many different audiences that you're trying to communicate with of what you're doing, getting them on board, showing them how you're changing. That may be board members, it could be the community at large, it could be existing members, staff, or previous members. What has been the most challenging group to communicate with about this change and why?
I'll let Steve answer that.
Okay, Steve, you're in the hot seat.
Definitely the staff, and I'm trying to parse that a little bit. It's probably operations staff, people who've been in centers selling membership. What do you mean? And also some of our center board, team, the center volunteers. We're like, oh, sounds all great and everything, but will we see that revenue for our branch? And disassociating, as we're doing some stuff just with how we present financials, we will not be sending out to all of our centers their center financials. It's going to be an association financial. We'll keep track because we want to know how, the economics of each branch is doing over time. But we need to move ourselves away from the old thinking, which is I sell so many memberships in my center or in my community if you're a multi-branch operation, and that I get rewarded or discouraged or punished, if you will, for meeting or not meeting those goals. That's so deeply embedded in our culture and in our belief systems. I think that has been and will continue to be the hardest hurdle to overcome.
And Lisa, just to add, I mean, going back to our last session, we have thrown a tremendous amount, right, at our team. So third-party pay, transforming our membership model, launching a virtual platform, moving to essential childcare, food services, furloughs, vacations, holidays, COVID. I mean, we wish, and I think the team really tried, and then the Zoom environment, right? Because traditionally you would launch a product and it would take 6 months, right? And then you do A/B testing, and that's where I think the entrepreneurial spirit came into play. So lots of learnings, and I think we have opportunities moving forward. But yeah, I think Steve articulated it really well. It's our internal audience. Externally, partners, business people get it because that's their experience with the Y. Internally, it's a little bit of a bigger lift.
You know what else we're wrestling with is what do you get for it?
Yeah.
What do you get? What's the value proposition? We went down the path of T-shirts and mugs and
guest passes.
Then we went guest passes and we went, oh my God, we're falling into that trap. This is meant to be something. So just know that, it's hard. As much as we've been out there, we found ourselves drawn back into that whole idea of what do you get for it? And, some of my colleagues in Wineland asked, what do people get? I said, well, they get a really nice video from me. Someone offered to pay double if they didn't have to get a video from me. We had, and a sense of purpose, connection, belonging. Wait a minute. All these words are coming out of my mouth. It was like, isn't this what we've said all along? Membership and programs are about in the Y. Purpose, belonging, connection, strengthening the ties that bind us together. And so, we're curating programming, if you will, or experience. We're programming an experience for our impact members. So it's an experience, or it's a set of experiences. And it includes things like a town hall that we had. It includes things like some book clubs that we'll organize. We can all do it with very low cost because we can use this platform now pretty much forever. A walk in the park. We had some impact members go volunteer to hand out food because we had that opportunity. So they engaged in the process. So I see a couple of questions that we can answer fairly quickly on the childcare families who are subsidized. Great question. we'll build into our pricing. And if we can't, if we feel like we can't, build in the appropriate pricing for this into a child, for instance, a family that's getting third-party subsidy for state funding for childcare, we'll just give it to them. Oh, by the way, we're again still trying to nuance this. The idea that when you purchase or engage in and become an impact member, you make something possible for someone else. And so we'll begin to tie back in some creative way, the folks that, bought impact memberships made access available to other people. There's no incremental cost to us to give someone an impact membership, zero incremental cost. And so, so I think that we'll be able to be pretty generous with that in those kinds of areas and not be tied to how much can we charge for it. And someone else asked about the creative, John. Anything with love that we have to clear up if people use any of this messaging?
I think we can tackle this. I mean, we do. So for everyone knows that we have an internal team that does a lot of the messaging, but we also use an external audience to do a lot of our creative. And so one of the things that Steve talked about is we engage otherwise. Wouldn't it be great that, we launch this among a number of different YMCAs and we can all share in those collective assets, as well as the infrastructure that Daxco's building to help us launch this thing nationally. So just shoot me an email directly and I'll be able to walk you through any of those conversations.
I'd like to add a little flavor to the answer to Missy's question too about monthly subscription, if you will, for programs. I believe in my heart of hearts, there is a future where we don't have to do leagues. We got plenty of people doing leagues that go 9 weeks long, and we can have a different form of youth sports available to people or a series of leagues that are lined up, stacked up so neatly that it's just natural to go from one to the other. We've always believed in swim lessons that there's a start and a stop and you get to a certain level and then you sign up for your next level. To me, that is such an archaic way in which we do it. Some Ys are already doing it, but our competitors, it's a monthly fee you pay and you just keep going until you decide that you're not going to go anymore. And it's a continual progression in your swimming lesson experience. Every time someone asks a question, well, what about? I defer directly to program design. You have to get creative and innovative in how we design programs. And just because we ran it that way pre-COVID does not mean that we're required to run it post-COVID. And we're not gonna, I took a look at I'm a bit exaggerating, but essentially we were generating in our sports programs, I'm just gonna make up a number, $600,000 in revenue, spending $550,000. Like, people are nodding, you suspect that may be the case with yours too. And so we've been really clear about our priorities next year. If we're going to do it, it's because it's in service to regaining our membership base and broadening the market like we've just described for membership. So doing sports in the future is going to be about strengthening the family experience at the Y, not necessarily developing the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah. And I think just to add to that too is, remember, the concept of this base price subscription model is only foreign to the Y. It's not foreign to how we engage. And so if you think of all the brands, right, we pay a monthly subscription, then, oh, by the way, I want to sign up for that cooking class. I'm a big fan of Asana Rebel, right? I get the baseline classes, and then, oh, if I want to get personal classes or I want to attend cooking, I pay another $5 I need to pay. But then it gives me the ability to downgrade. And again, it's no different than our Prime membership. And the idea behind the Amazon Prime membership, right, is that you pay it by base price, you get free shipping, and all the way you get these personalized preferences that you're interested in. That's really the design of this membership strategy. So I'm a swim lesson participant, swim lessons end. Oh, by the way, I stay a member. Oh, I can go attend a cancer rally. I can go for a march. I can take this. Oh, and then now it's time for me to take virtual personal training. I can just pay for virtual personal training. All along, you're doing really good for the community. So, yeah, I think it's foreign to everybody on the Y movement, but not foreign to how we transact with companies in a traditional way now.
Wonderful. anybody else on the call, if you have a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat for John and Steve, or you're welcome to unmute yourself as well and ask yourself. One question, Steve, that I have for you is I know a lot of, I guess the vision for this was spurred through a collaboration that you had with your daughter. You had mentioned, tell me a little bit more about like what that process was like, and is she involved in the Y movement, or was this just a side kind of family dinner table conversation that took shape?
No, I actually engaged her for a better part of a year. We would have conversations once or twice a month. So we scheduled them. I just said, I need your help. I need to get inside your head. I need to understand, and I need you to. So she would go and test some of these things with her friends. Would this be interesting to you? And she'd have conversations that she'd report back to me. It's a microcosm of a larger market. She also happens, she's in LA now, and she's an aspiring actress, and she's kind of linked in with these influencers, like digital, social media influencers. Actually lived with one who like had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of followers and was getting paid $5,000 per post or something crazy that she was doing. Not my daughter. That's why I was paying her to be my coach. But she just helped me get a better understanding of that, but also was a good litmus test. And even to today, as we different variations, I sent her the whole packet that we put together, and she just came back with, well, this doesn't make sense, or this is confusing. It's just been a great, it's just been a really nice, it was more formal for a while, and that I had said, look, I'm actually going to call you my coach. And it was good for her professional development to get some experience doing that. She also, turned me on to this whole idea of influencers and amplifiers. We haven't decided exactly how or when, but I anticipate that we're going to be using that as a marketing tool for ourselves also going forward.
Wonderful. John, could you tell us a little bit about, one of the things you mentioned was the Equity and Innovation Center. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how that has taken shape so far, and what the vision is for it moving forward?
That's Steve's lane. I'll let Steve talk about that.
Okay.
So so RY has been deeply involved in social equity work for quite some time. Our youth development team curates a tour every year. We go through, and I got to go on it one year. We were in Birmingham and walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It's about exposing young people in Houston to the civil rights movement. It's been deeply, plus the refugee resettlement work we do, New Welcome. All right, so that work has always been a part of our life. And in the middle of all of this, we had the horrific killing of George Floyd that we all witnessed. And my immediate reaction was, I'm making a statement. And I crafted a statement for RY in which I included, and I've been kind of watching what had been happening up in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities Y, now Y in the North, with the Equity Innovation Center. Some of our staff had gone to visit it. So we sort of had a prototype we'd been thinking about, and I committed in our public statement that we would open an Equity Innovation Center. And so it was really interesting because my team took that out of the statement on 2 different times. I kept putting it back in. I finally had to call them up and say, look, I'm the CEO and I'm saying we're going to do this. I have that right. And I also have the power to make it happen. So we went ahead and we've committed space in our downtown Y that is about physical space, which is just about making a statement. Our approach to it is entirely about curating, amplifying, lifting the voice of smaller not-for-profits in the Greater Houston area who are doing great work around social equity, unconscious bias, building out people's capacity for people like me to deal with our whiteness, and for people like me to deal with our whiteness and our maleness, and to have real, honest, brave conversations. We chose to start internally. So it has been a journey of our team. We've had some very powerful and intense experiences because we said to the community, we're going to start first internally. Reliant came forward and gave us $100,000 to be to power the work. But it's not like we're developing programs and giving to them. We're co-creating with them. We're learning from their They're learning from our model around ERGs. We're learning from their model around some of the work they're doing internally. And so it's been a very internally focused, but we're making the statement and creating a position with our Equity Innovation Center. And, quite frankly, it's been the source of some remarkable philanthropic support for us. Just the fact that we put ourselves out there and did it has opened up lots more doors for us. And so we're going to continue to accelerate that work going into next year. We think, and this was one of the things I learned from my daughter, back to your original question, is that she and her peers really, they want things that are going to change the world. They're like, nobody should be a Soul Cycle member. That's just wrong. When they, heard some of the statements, I'm like, and she's been saying to me, the Y is on the side of good and right and justice, and say it, call it out there. And so this effort on our part is an effort to head down that road in a powerful way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's been so inspiring listening to you both speak, is that it seems like you've totally taken what was built upon the foundation of the mission of the Y that maybe lost its way a bit, and have gotten back down to the foundation and are really rebuilding it in a way that makes sense for
Right.
now and for the future.
Right.
I know that that's been such a monumental task. In our final moments together, do you have any words of inspiration or encouragement for some of your peers that are on the call who may be looking to take on something as audacious as this in their own communities and in their own work?
I think I would just say, if it scares you, then you're probably supposed to do it. If it makes you uncomfortable, then it's the right thing. I have to, when we go out and start training and exercising again, it hurts a little. Sometimes it hurts a lot. But we know it's good, and we know that it's for something greater down the path. And so these things are not for the faint of heart, taking on these kinds of innovations and opportunities. But having faith and courage, and knowing that if we continue to do the right thing and we continue to tell the story well about it, that the good things will come to us. And that's been, I can live by experience. That's been what has happened to us. And I would just encourage, especially younger professionals like me, who might be sitting there thinking, what is this organization I've become part of, and what's it going to be in the future? Don't lose faith and continue to trust your instincts. The fact that you're not as embedded into or anchored to the way things have been or were, actually is going to be an asset for us. And I encourage people to raise their voices every chance they get.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate both of your time and sharing with us the valuable work that you're doing. And we can't wait to keep along with you and hear how everything's going as you embark on the next phase of this journey. So really appreciate it. And I know that everyone who has joined in today as well has, just looking from the chat and thumbs up and all that great stuff. Everyone, we will be leaving this session, and then you will find the link for your next session for Accelerate within the Cadence event platform.